Our next project is the relaying of these pavers. Using the existing second-hand pavers, the practical aspect of this job was to bring these pavers up to the same height as this stairway here, putting a slight slope on it so the water runs off in this direction. That meant that the paving ended up considerably higher than the ground level. So I cut up strips of pavers to put a brick edge along the front and sides of this platform.
You come and go like a monsoon rain. You hide and show like a lightning bolt. You have it all.
I had to remove all the old pavers, excavate the area. I put a gravel bed under it, then a 75mm concrete slab with reinforced mesh, and then we stuck the pavers on with tile adhesive. I also adjusted the width and length of this platform so it would line up with these posts. Then we did a custom cutout so the whole thing looked like it belonged together. But the main part of this project was to simply make these steps the right height for the platform.
This staircase and patio is the primary access point from the house to the garden. My client is retired and spends a lot of time tending the garden of her 2-acre property. So the idea was to rehabilitate this area and create an ergonomic and safe entry and exit point into her house. The first step in our project is going to be to remove the old pavers and excavate the ground in preparation for our concrete foundation. We can see here how these old bricks created an uneven and unsafe step in the transition from the ground to the deck. Before I remove these pavers, I need to count them and take some measurements so we know what kind of configuration we're going to relay them on our concrete foundation.
So the idea here is to get a drawing so we can figure out all our materials and know how to navigate this when we relay everything. I'm drawing this roughly to scale. 5mm on paper represents 500mm on the ground. It's worth taking the time to make a detailed drawing like this so you can do all your calculations on paper, end up with a much more accurate layout when it comes to sticking it onto the concrete. So now we have a scale drawing of all the pavers we're going to be putting in place here. I know what size timbers I need to get to build the form for this edge. I always like to have some kind of rough drawing normally. It's the most accurate way to end up with a really nice end result. One of the reasons we're going to be relaying all these pavers is they're a bit uneven because they've been laid on sand. These bricks have been laid here as a sort of temporary measure to create an even step system. But now you have an uneven threshold between the brick and this patio. So we're going to be raising this patio up to this brick height. So the patio matches the stair for this deck structure.
The pavers pull up quite easily because they're just laying on sand. I need to wash them thoroughly so they're clean for when we cement them on later and we have a really strong contact with our concrete foundation. I'm giving them a preliminary rinse off with a hose as I pull them up and we stack them off to the side for convenience.
Now everything that has been don't matter no more. We've burned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it. Everything that has been don't matter no more. We've burned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it.
That's all the pavers removed and washed and stacked over here. The next step will be to excavate this sand and get our formwork in for our concrete foundation.
After removing the old bricks at the bottom of the step, I've discovered a concrete slab that was lying underneath. I checked the strength of the concrete by hitting it with my wrecking bar a few times. I considered leaving this concrete in and pouring over the top of it, but it's not strong enough. It doesn't have any reinforcement bar and it's breaking up really easy. Sometimes I leave old concrete foundations in the ground if they're solid enough. But in this case, it's much safer for us to remove the old concrete and start fresh. With the old structure removed, it's time to start setting some heights with our form timbers so we know how much sand to dig out to make room for the gravel and concrete we'll be adding. I'm aligning my first timber to the bottom of this step. as this will be the reference to what we set our paving height to. I'm fixing a straight piece of timber along the bottom of this step as our starting point. Then I'll work my way around the perimeter, fixing other form timbers until we've boxed in the whole structure.
Mostly off track and under attack, so we've earned it.
This side of the formwork ends up with a slight downhill slope to aid in rain runoff, so the water drains away from the step and into the lawn.
Now everything that has been don't matter no more. We've earned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it. Everything that has been don't matter no more. We've earned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it.
So last week we finished off doing the form work for this concrete patio we're going to pour here. We're going to make the pavers end exactly on the edge of these posts. So that's why we've configured this formwork this way. The finished system's going to end flush on these posts. But we're going to have a piece of paver on the side here, seeing this whole patio is going to be elevated about 100 mil above the lawn. So we're setting these forms in this configuration. The concrete will end up with the right spaces for us to add all our pavers on top. We've got this started nicely, but we'll have to remove a bunch more sand. All the sand we're excavating here, we're actually using to fill a dip over on the other project. So all the dirt we're excavating from the patio project over there, we're spreading out here, because there's a big dip in the lawn here. We got it started last week. We've got a few more loads to get it up to a flat height. So today we're going to be finishing off the excavation over there and spreading this sand dirt out here, getting it as flat as possible.
Give me tears so I can cry. And give me heart so I don't die. Give me tears so I can cry. And give me heart so I don't die.
Because the ground we're building on here is basically beach sand, I want to have an extra stable gravel base under our concrete. So I have to remove about 100 mil of sand below our formwork to create a space for this gravel.
One way, gonna lay down, be still, won't waste another tear. Wait till it disappears.
By completely flooding our excavated area, it helps remove any air in the sand and start the compaction process. I'm adding a significant amount of gravel to our base. I don't want to disturb my formwork, so I create a temporary gravel ramp. This helps me get the wheelbarrow over the formwork without pushing it out of alignment.
If you have love, you wanna give me some, and I will wait for someone else to come. Oh, it's sad, but it feels right.
When I've added enough gravel to the inside of the frame, I remove the gravel ramp with my rake and then smooth out the interior foundation to have a nice flat, smooth area for our concrete. I use my hose to wet all the gravel down like we did before with the sand. By giving the gravel a thorough soaking, it helps all the small and large pieces of gravel bond together so we end up with a really good base. While I'm letting this gravel base dry out, I'm going to flatten out the sand we excavated on the other sandstone path project.
We just have a little bit of carpentry to finish off before this form's finished. We've got to put a couple of pieces either side of this staircase.
The way I've configured this formwork is the piece that runs along the step is sitting above where the concrete slab will be. So we have to fill in 2 small pieces either side of the staircase to hold the concrete in when we pour it. After checking that the piece of timber fits between the staircase and the formwork, I set a mark with my square. This way when we screw it in place, it's going to be dead square and plumb to the staircase and the formwork. I double check it with my set square before setting it in place with the second screw. I do one last check with the set square. It's always a lot easier to adjust your timber formwork than to have to adjust the concrete later when it's set up. I move over to the other side of the steps and repeat the process.
Come closer, dance for me. Easy, tiger, easy, let your head down. Come closer, let me see all your million faces and all your million mistakes. You don't need to hide.
We're going to be creating the concrete foundation for our paved patio area. The slab sits about 100 mil above ground height due to the fact that this new structure has to meet the height of the pre-existing wooden stairs that tie into the deck. The other critical factor of our concrete foundation is how it resolves into the corner posts of the existing pergola. Our formwork was built set back from the edge of our structure, leaving enough room for slices of paver to be clad on later to help create a unified paved look for the entire patio, and started the process of filling the base with gravel. After allowing the gravel to dry out over the weekend, I need to do some fine tuning to the gravel base before we pour our concrete. My plan is to pour a 75 mil thick concrete slab for our foundation, so I need to add about 30 mil more of gravel. I'm using these scrap timbers that are 30 mil thick as a guide by putting it around the edge of my formwork and then filling additional gravel up to that height. I also want to compact it in best I can just by walking it in with my feet. I'm double checking the measurements of our foundation so I can cut our rebar mesh to the right size.
There's things in life you simply need to know, but sun and rain and trust and letting go. It takes a bit of suffering, sleepless nights and wandering before you make it safely to the end, the end, the end.
The steel reinforcement mesh needs to be suspended above the gravel. I'm using small blocks of wood, which I'll be removing as we pour the concrete. I'm building a temporary ramp out of scrap timber so my wheelbarrow full of concrete can get up over my formwork without bumping it out of alignment. A wheelbarrow full of wet concrete is extremely heavy, so it's worth taking the time to put a few extra screws in this structure so it won't fail on us once we get going with our concrete. When I've added enough screws to keep the ramp sturdy, I give it a test run with my empty wheelbarrow just to make sure everything's working properly. To help keep the edge of our concrete straight, I'm adding a number of stakes around the entire perimeter of our formwork.
And if you ever wonder, there is nothing wrong with a little thunder. There's things in life you simply need to know, but sun and rain and trust and letting go. It takes a bit of suffering, sleepless nights and wandering before you make it safely to the end.
I lightly wet the whole area down in preparation for us adding the concrete. I'm mixing the concrete a considerable distance away from where we're pouring our slab due to where the materials were dumped by the delivery truck. I start the process by adding water to my mixer. I'm using a standard concrete mix ratio of 6:1. My system for allowing the ingredients to mix properly is to add 3 shovel loads of gravel and sand mix and then move on to adding the Portland cement. I'm adding 1 full shovel load of the Portland cement, but I break it into thirds to help the ingredients bind properly in the mixer. If I was to dump a full shovel load of the Portland cement into the mixer, we could end up with a dry pocket of cement, which would compromise the strength of our concrete. I then add 3 more shovels of the gravel sand mix, and then take a look at the mixture to see how it's blending. In this case, I want to add a little more water. When I'm satisfied with the consistency, I dump it into my wheelbarrow. I use my foot to stabilize the mixer. It can be a little top heavy when it's full of wet concrete. I always have to be careful on the first part of pouring the concrete into the form. I don't want to push our steel reinforcement out of alignment, so I add the first batch quite gently. Once we get a couple of loads of concrete into the form, the steel mesh will stabilize. Once I've gently worked the concrete through the steel mesh, it's stable enough now for me to remove one of the wood supports. The goal now is to keep adding concrete all the way through the center of the form, constantly working with the rake to get all the air out of the mixture. I'm continuing to remove the small wooden blocks as we fill more concrete into the system. As our concrete base gets larger, I add pieces of plywood so I can get the wheelbarrow deeper into the formwork.
9 to 5 was my dad's advice. Don't think twice, I want the luxury life. My beauty can lose it, I'll use it. I'll take what I want. Oh yeah. A whole lot of ticket, not enough time. A whole lot of work, trophy wide, like me.
Once we've pushed the concrete all the way to the other side of the form, I fill in the sides and corners and removing our small wood blocks as we go, constantly working it with my rake to keep agitating the air out of the concrete. I pay extra attention to agitating it in the corners and along the sides of the forms. We want these to be really strong. We don't want any weakness on the edges or the corners. Once I've spread a base of concrete throughout the entire system, I then need to fill it to the top of our forms before we start our screeding process to create this smooth foundation slab. At this stage, we've mixed about 75% of the concrete we're going to need.
The clock keeps ticking, still running out of time.
Volume of concrete getting close to filling our form, I set up for the finishing process with a 2x4 I'm going to use to screed the top of the slab. After getting the concrete to the top of the form timbers with my trowel, I'm working my way back from the step. I'm using a piece of plywood to stand on so I don't sink into the concrete. I continue to add concrete to bring the volume up to the top of our form as I work the 2x4 to screed the top of the slab to get a really smooth finish.
Daydreaming is my new middle name. This is not a game for me. Imagine it is my new best friend, and raise all I see. I gotta be deep in love.
With all the work complete on my concrete foundation, I let it set up and harden overnight. The next morning the slab's looking good, but I notice there's some animal tracks left in it. Little Gus is here to greet me and I think I might know who caused the tracks in the concrete. Because we're going to be sticking pavers over the top of this concrete, it's not going to matter. The concrete looks hard enough for me to start pulling my formwork apart.
There's no guarantee in love. No, we just have to wait and see.
It's always a really enjoyable moment when I pull off the formwork and get to see my concrete for the first time.
Give me tears so I can cry.
I need to do a little work to ensure our concrete slab is dead flat for when we stick our pavers on. I'm using my diamond bit on my grinder to take some of the bumps off from the formwork. The level works as a reference to tell me when I've flattened it out enough. Once the edge is ground flat enough, I move on to grinding some of the bumps off the doggy paws left in our concrete. Wash off all the concrete dust with my hose and give it one last check with my level to make sure I didn't leave any little bumps behind. When we get to cementing our pavers on top, I want to get it as flat as possible.
Looks like we're going to be rained off for the day.
The weather where I live is highly unpredictable and I often get rained off. There'll be two parts to this paving process. There's the horizontal pavers we're sticking on top of the slab, and the pavers will be cementing on vertically around the perimeter of our slab. To help keep the side pavers flat and straight, I'm setting up a piece of timber attached to the pergola. This will create a straight edge for these side pavers to set up against. I'm using some packers under this timber form and checking with my level to get it in line and perfectly flat with the top of the slab. Once everything's plumb, I lock it off with a heavy timber screw and move on to the other side and repeat the process. With this timber in place, I've created a 45mm gap to set our pavers up against. I'll be using my wet saw to manufacture these 100mm wide strips of paver. In our stockpile of recycled pavers, we have two thicknesses. The thicker ones are 45mm we're going to be using for the horizontal paving, and we also have some thinner 40mm pavers. These are the ones I'm going to use for the side cladding. I line up the blade of the wet saw with our pencil mark. When I'm cutting pavers this thick, I take my time and do multiple passes to keep the cut straight and to not overheat the blade. I'm going to double check our measurements by test fitting this first one in place. I want to make sure the cut paver matches the top of our concrete slab exactly. The first row of horizontal pavers will be sitting on top of these clad pavers, so it's important to get them right as this is a highly visual part of our structure. I'm using our first test paver to scribe and cut the rest of the pavers we'll need for the whole perimeter of our platform.
But there's some words that I just want to say, to put it all straight before this night turns into day, and then I'm on my way. Yeah, yes, I'm on my way.
Once all the pieces are cut and washed, I stack them around the perimeter of our foundation in preparation for sticking the first couple onto the side of the platform. I'm unscrewing the timber straight edge so I have room to stick the tiles onto the concrete foundation. I've put the first piece in the center of our slab and I'll work my way either side out from there. This will ensure a really symmetrical layout. I'm dry fitting the two paver pieces and double checking them with my straight edge. When I'm satisfied they're going to fit properly, I set up to cement them in place. It's always a good idea to lightly mist the area we're going to cement. It really helps the cement bind to the concrete. The idea is to butter both surfaces with our tile adhesive. I want to end up with about 5mm of tile cement between the foundation and the paver. So I apply about half that thickness to both surfaces. I then set it in place and use our timber straight edge to check its alignment. I can see with my straight edge that I haven't put enough tile cement on both the surfaces. So I remove the paver, add some more tile cement and then put it back in place. I nudge it into alignment with the center paver we already have fixed in place and then move on to installing the paver on the other side.
You said, let me tell you everything I've seen, the friends I've made, and then you tell me how you've been. Look a little
closer. It's been quite some time. But you gotta let me know if I'm out of line. But there's some words that I just wanna hear you say, to put it all straight before this night turns into day, and then I'm on my way. Yeah. Yes, I'm on my way.
I'll let these side pieces dry and set in place before adding any more to them. In the meantime, we're going to set the first centerpiece for our horizontal pavers. After checking with my tape measure that the paving stone's exactly in the center, I prepare to cement it in place. The product I'm using to stick the tiles in place is called ceramicrete, and it's purpose designed for sticking heavy brick, tile and stone onto concrete surfaces. Just like before, I mist the area down to aid the ceramicrete in its bonding to the concrete. I'm adding a relatively thick layer of tile adhesive to our foundation, then scraping off the excess with my tile rake. When I'm satisfied I've got a good bed of cement in place, I carefully return the paver to the center position and push it hard down onto the foundation, wobbling it back and forth a little bit so I can feel it make contact with the concrete. I check it's aligned correctly using a spirit level and a pencil line that's marked parallel to our steps. With the center starting piece in place, I dry fit the other pavers either side of it. After checking the timber step against the parallel line we've set, I realise I'm going to have to make a slight trim on one of the pavers to be able to keep everything square. I mark up one of the pavers I've selected for this first row with my pencil. I only want to rip off about 3 mil from the edge. I take the paver over to my wet saw to make the cut.
Quiet voices in the night. Time is running out of sight. Lonely wind is passing by. Tries to carry all the whispers that it finds. The walls are listening when we talk, making echoes as we walk. There's no one left but you and me. It's like a made-up place that only we can see. Hold my hand and hear the words I say. Close your eyes and let us fade away. Build a secret place for you and me. Let our minds be caught up in a dream.
With the dry layout set completely plumb to our square platform, I move the pavers off to the side in a convenient position for relaying them, and then apply the ceramicrete with my trowel and tile rake.
Standing underneath the lights, look into each other's eyes. There's no one left but you and me. It's like a made-up place that only we can see.
I try and keep the pavers stacked as close to where I'm going to relay them as possible. These 400mm pavers are really heavy.
Standing underneath the lights, look into each other's eyes. Tired snowflakes are coming down, collapse into water when they hit the ground. I hear the sound of empty streets, and yesterday has gone to sleep. So all that's left is you and me. I can't promise you're the only thing I see.
Part of my process for the reconstruction of this patio is to add our pavers in small sections and allow them to dry and set up and be solid before adding more pavers next to them. This stops us bumping the previously laid pavers out of alignment. I'm adding another one of our vertical pavers along the front here whilst we let that first row of horizontal pavers set up. After letting the first row of pavers set up overnight, we're ready to put the next row on. I don't need to wet the area down with the hose because it's been raining this morning, but I give it a quick sweep to make sure there aren't any small stones or bits of gravel that'll get underneath our pavers. The most important part about laying this second row is making sure the pavers are centered on the previous row on the halfway point to create our brick layout. I'm double checking with my tape measure to make sure they're laying exactly halfway across the previous row.
We'll just let this rainstorm pass over and then we'll get back to sticking these pavers down.
Close your eyes and let us fade away. Build a secret place for you and me. Let our minds be caught up in a dream. Standing underneath the lights, look into each other's eyes. There's no one left but you and me. It's like a made-up place that only we can see.
I double check this row with my tape measure to make sure it's sitting square and symmetrical to our foundation. I give these pavers time to set in place while I prepare to clad more of the bricks on the side of our patio platform. The gravel foundation that lies under our concrete slab needs a little tidy up and excavation to make room for the 100mm strips of paver we're going to be sticking to the side. My technique for attaching these side pavers completely flat and straight to our foundation is to use a timber straight edge. I'm reusing the same piece of timber we used on the front, as this is a dead straight piece of timber. To attach this straight edge completely parallel to our slab, I have to build a temporary frame attached to the timber staircase. This is going to enable me to have a 45mm gap parallel to the concrete foundation. I double check the whole system with my set square and testing it with one of my pavers to make sure we're going to have the correct gap with enough room for the paver and 5mm of tile adhesive. I lock in a piece of scrap timber to enable me to open and close the straight edge like a large clamp. After making some pencil marks to align these side pavers in the brick pattern with our top pavers, I add a few packers to get them up to the right height. I double check with my timber straight edge to make sure these side pieces are aligned in all 3 dimensions to give us a straight and plumb edge to our patio. Part of managing the workflow on this project is to dry fit pavers in the morning and then cement them in place in the afternoon. This way they're set up solid for the next day to fit more pavers.
You master how to simplify. You turn rain into a blue sky. Oh, when the wind blows.
I've noticed this paver isn't sitting completely flush and flat to the previous pavers. Some of these older second-hand pavers aren't all exactly the same thickness, so I compensate for this by adding a couple of thin packers or sometimes having to grind off a little bit of the corner. I set myself up to cement on the paving bricklets that we dry set earlier on the side of our patio. I have to make some adjustments to the height of this first bricklet. I'm changing out the size of the packers to get it so it's flush with our concrete foundation. Like I did on the front section of the patio we did earlier, I'm adding slightly more than 5mm of tile cement to both surfaces. So when we squeeze it together with our straight edge, we'll end up with a really solid adhesion. I'm using the timber straight edge to gently tap this bricklet completely parallel to the concrete foundation. When I'm happy with its alignment, I clean off the excess tile cement and move on to the next bricklet and repeat the process.
You master how to simplify. You turn rain into a blue sky. Oh, when the wind blows and the windows are closing, you let the
enjoyable process if you've prepared and staged everything properly. The core of this project is laying square pavers, so everything has to be kept square and plumb to have a good finished result.
Over and over, injustice to injury. This is a part of it all. Could you hike back to it, fight with it, sit with it? This is a part of it all. Ask around, be aware, make peace with what is there.
After the tile cement is set up solidly, I remove our straight edge timber formwork and reassemble it on the other side to repeat the process. And it looks like little Gus the Dachshund is going to be helping me out today. With our timber straight edge set up with its 45mm parallel gap to the concrete foundation, I stick the tiles on in a mirror image layout from the previous side. By this stage, the process has become pretty streamlined and efficient. With all the full-sized 400mm long side pavers in place, we're going to work on finishing the corners off. The front edge of the patio is going to require 2 small pieces at either side to fill the gap between the full-size pavers and the pergola post. After cementing it in place, I use a couple of packers to fix it into alignment. The backside of our patio next to the step is going to require 1 more full paver piece and a smaller filler piece to finish off the corner. I'm attaching all the corner paver pieces freehand because each edge has a pre-existing part of the structure to align to. By adjusting the packers and double checking with my set square, I can align this paver bricklet so when we add the horizontal paver on top later, they'll all line up squarely together. Here you can see how the side pieces align with the top pieces in the finished patio, helping to create a neat and solid look to our structure. It's time to remove the timber straight edge on the final side of the patio platform, and little Gus wants to get in on the action.
But there's some words that I just wanna hear you say, to put it all straight before this night turns into day, and then I'm on my way. Yes, I'm on my way. A bit naive and so eager to please. You know I played for love, but it got me on my knees.
I often find I can get a much more accurate mark by scribing the material in place and then cutting it to size. With all the pieces for the side cladding cut and dry fit, I move on to sticking them in place. Another one of the reasons why I stick all these pavers in batches is the tile adhesive. The ceramicrete only has a certain operating time once you add water to it, so by having all my paving pieces pre-cut and test fitted, I can work quite quickly to stick them on, allowing me to get the most out of my batch of tile cement. It can seem like a lot of extra work to keep going back and forth to the areas where we've already laid tiles, but by allowing some of these tiles to set in place solidly before you add another tile, you actually save a lot of time. Because if you bump the previous tile out of alignment, you can start to go backwards really quickly. By having all our side pieces set solidly in place, tomorrow we'll be able to get some of the horizontal pavers stuck on top of the corners. I only have 2 more pieces in this corner to complete all the side cladding. I've promised little Gus that when I finish this, I'll give him a run in the backyard.
Give me tears so I can cry. And give me heart so I don't die. Give me tears so I can cry. Give me heart so I don't die.
Last week we finished doing all the side capping. I ripped some pavers down into 90mm slices and we've glued them on the side here. We had to get these in place before we can put our pavers on top.
I used the pre-existing pergola to set the size of this patio. To fit our paver layout into this space, I'm going to have to cut a small slice of all the pavers that are around the edge of the patio. After getting a measurement, I transposed this to the wet saw and cut a slice off the paver. To cut thick pavers like this on my wet saw, I do a couple of light scored cuts along the top before I do a deep cut all the way through the paver. It's important to thoroughly wash it clean. I don't want any small pieces of stone getting in the way when I test fit it. After checking that it fits the edge of our patio perfectly, I move on to measuring the half piece that's going to be behind it. I often write the measurements for the piece I'm going to cut in place for reference. My plan today was to cut and dry fit pavers in the morning and then cement them down in the afternoon as we've been doing throughout this project. But it's just started raining really heavily, so I'm going to have to take cover.
I was hoping to get the rest of this paving finished today, but the weather's not cooperating. I'm going to see if this rain set in. We have to come back tomorrow, whether we can wait it out.
Yesterday, there was sun and there was rain. Beauty in the mundane.
Well, my plan today was to finish off this paving area with all the custom cut pieces around the edges. So last week we got all the principal pavers stuck down that don't need any cuts in them. I started cutting a couple of the ones we're going to have to trim for this outside edge, like this one. This paver, unfortunately, is sitting a bit proud, a bit high, so I'm going to have to grind it down with my large grinder. I use a diamond bit on my large grinder, and we should be able to take a couple of mil off the back of this to get this to fit more flat. I've trimmed this off on the inside so we can keep the natural outside edge. Got some halfway ones. These ones are working out okay because they're a little lower than these pavers, so we can pack them up when we glue them down. My plan is to cut them all so they fit to size and then see which ones need a bit of grinding so we can do them all in one hit. So all our pavers are going to need cutouts to be able to match this outside edge, and the two outside corner ones are going to have cutouts here to go around this post. That was the plan today if the weather was going to allow me. If a job site gets this wet, it gets dangerous because your extension cords and everything are in the water and it's just not worth it. So we might be coming back tomorrow. I'm just going to see if this is going to blow over. It looks like the rain's going to clear, so we're going to carry on trying to finish off this paving area. I have all the pavers spread out here so we can sort them by size and thickness. Because we're using recycled pavers, we have some thickness issues, but we'll get to that later. For the time being, we just need to fit them like a jigsaw puzzle. I'm going to go through and finish all the cutouts on the custom edges first. Then we're going to see how many we need to grind down and how many we need to pack up to keep these pavers as flat as possible.
After checking through the inventory of recycled pavers, I've realised there's only 2 of them that I need to grind a couple of mil off. This can be one of the problems with using old recycled pavers. They're not as consistent in their thickness and size as the modern new ones. After fitting my diamond bit to the large grinder, I set up a staging area on a couple of planks of timber.
Now everything that has been don't matter no more. We've earned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it.
After test fitting the paver in place, I realised I need to take a little more off.
All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it.
Once I'm satisfied this paver's flush to the pre-existing pavers I've cemented to the foundation, I move on to grinding the paver on the other side.
Come closer, dance for me. Easy, tiger, easy, let your hair down. Come closer, let me see.
With this second paver fitting flush and flat to the existing pavers, I move on to continue dry fitting the pavers around the edge of our patio. But first I'm going to give it a thorough wash down after all the dust I generated. For fitting these corner pieces next to the step, I find it more accurate to have the paver in place. I can see here it overhangs by about 15 mil on two sides. I then get a measurement for the two cuts I'll be making on the wet soil.
Quiet voices in the night. Time is running out of sight. A lonely wind is passing by. Tries to carry all the whispers that it finds.
After checking the paver fits properly, I repeat the process for the corner on the other side. With all the pavers trimmed and dry fit, I give the entire patio a final wash down in preparation for cementing the pavers in place. My plan is to start sticking the pavers in the back corner next to the step and work my way around to the front.
Hold my hand and hear the words I say. Close your eyes and let us fade away. Build a secret place for you and me. Let our minds be caught up in a dream.
I make sure I've got good coverage of tile cement on both surfaces and then push the paver into place, rocking it back and forth until I can feel it scraping on the concrete. This half paver is going to need some packers to get it up to the right height, so I'm test fitting some 3mm packers here. Once I'm satisfied the 3mm packers are going to work, I add the tile cement and set it in place just like the other paver. I continue the process all around the outside edge of the patio. With all my careful preparation and test fitting these pavers, the formula's coming together really well and everything's sticking in place, really square, plumb and aligned perfectly with our foundation. It's a beautiful sunny day, so it's time for me to settle down and enjoy this process.
Tired snowflakes are coming down, collapse into water when they hit the ground. I hear the sound of empty streets. Yesterday has gone to sleep, so all that's left is you and me. I can promise you're the only thing I see. Hold my hand and hear the words I say. Close your eyes and let us fade away.
It's really important to sponge off any excess tile cement whilst it's still wet. With this side of the patio complete, I move round to the other side and repeat the process until I get to the front pavers.
Like lilies you open, the fragrance goes in my head, my darling. I get everything that has been, don't matter no more. We've burned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it. We've earned it.
The corner pieces that notch around the pergola post are a little trickier because I want to get a really tight fit.
Now everything that has been don't matter no more. We've burned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it.
So the relaying of these pavers is now complete. We just stuck the last couple on this front edge down today. We went to a lot of trouble pouring this concrete slab to reset them on. Clad the outside of it with these paving pieces and then relaying all the other pavers on top. We ran into a couple of issues. There's two types of pavers with different thicknesses, which caused a bit of trouble. By using packers and a bit of grinding on the extra fat ones, we got them all pretty flat. The whole thing's on a very gradual slope coming this way. It's not really perceivable, but just enough to stop water puddling on it.
The two main objectives of this project was to raise the paving height up to the pre-existing steps that access the deck and to have a flat and smooth entryway into the garden. Let's take a quick look back at the steps we took to achieve our project using recycled pavers.
So the idea here is to get a drawing so we can figure out all our materials and know how to navigate this when we relay everything. I'm drawing this roughly to scale.
One way, gonna lay down, be still, won't waste another tear. Wait till it disappears.
So last week we finished off doing the form work for this concrete patio we're going to pour here. We're going to make the pavers end exactly on the edge of these posts.
If you have love, you wanna give me some, and I will wait for someone else to come. Oh, it's sad, but it feels right. Are we just hallucinating now? This is the final I just take a bow. While it all falls apart, 'cause you can't do it all. Oh no, city, rain, city. Breaking feedback, unless I'm gonna stay right here, stay till it disappears. One way, gonna lay down, be still, won't waste another tear. Wait till it disappears. Can I go to sleep, buried in my chest? The only thing that's left. If you have love, you wanna give me some, and I will wait for someone else to come. Oh, it's sad, but it feels right. Are we just hallucinating now? This is the final I just take a bow. While it all falls apart, 'cause you can't win them all. Oh no,
Thanks for joining me this week on my YouTube channel. Check the link below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or make a comment so I can help you with your future construction solutions. And don't forget to follow our channel for more ideas and how-to tips for home and garden projects.